This is the PR Podcast, a show about how public relations helps you tell your story to the world. We talk with great PR practitioners who have the skills, creativity, and just plain savvy to get their clients noticed. Now here's your host, Jody Fisher.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the PR Podcast. I'm Jody Fisher. Thanks for joining us. Well, we say it all the time, but we might as well say it again. Make sure you're checking us out on YouTube. We're in a video world, right? And we like watching stuff. We like listening to stuff like podcasts, but if you can watch the podcast, even better, right? And even though I have a face built for radio, our guests do not. And it's a lot more fun to watch the show and see people in their environment and connect with them visually. So check us out on YouTube. Search The PR Podcast. Make sure you put that "the" in front of it because there's only one The PR Podcast. And check all the episodes out. The further back you go, the fewer video episodes you're going to find. We've been doing this now for 5, maybe pushing 6 years. I don't know. And so the more recent episodes definitely have video on there. The older ones probably don't. And I'm talking about episode, like 1 through 50. But in any case, check us out on YouTube. Like, subscribe, share, all that stuff. And we'll see you there. Now let's get on with our show for today. We have a terrific guest. Sharon Toerek is the founder of Toerek Law, a marketing and intellectual property firm that helps independent marketing, digital PR, and creative agencies protect their assets and turn ideas into revenue. She helps teams lock down IP rights, manage AI and data privacy risk, and negotiate agency-friendly contracts that give leaders a clear, practical steps to stay creative, stay compliant, and grow. Sharon also hosts the Innovative Agency Podcast, which helps marketing agency leaders answer the question, what's next? Wouldn't we all like to know? Sharon, welcome to the PR Podcast.
Thank you, Jody. I'm thrilled to be here. We would all like to know. That's why I started my show, because I wanted to know, and I learn more every week.
Got to give you some props here. Your podcast is terrific.
Oh, thank you.
And I urge everyone to listen to it. You're up to episode 300, I saw, and something. We're only on 240 plus. So you've been doing
we're about to hit
huh?
I know, it's crazy. We're about to hit 350. And I have learned that the best way to learn more about the work that you do is to be curious and ask a lot of questions, I believe. And the show has really enabled me an opportunity. It's a privilege to be able to do that because it helps make me more aware. And also, I think it helps us see around the corner so we can help our clients navigate their issues also. So yeah, love doing the show. And thank you for the kind words. Really appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. We are of similar minds in that regard, that I have people on who are way smarter than I am. And I ask them questions and draw information out of them to share with the audience. So really terrific. And again, urge people to check out the Innovative Agency Podcast on your favorite podcast platform. But let's talk about you and the work that you do. You help agencies basically with their legal strategy, protecting their intellectual property. And I love what you say about turning ideas into revenue. Give us the rundown on your agency, what you do, and how you help other agencies.
Our firm helps agencies, independent agencies. Most of them, they're all closely held. Most of them are small or mid in size. And we help them in one of 3 areas generally. Well, sometimes we help them in all 3 areas, but our focus is this 3-legged stool of intellectual property. And that can mean clearance of IP, that can mean licensing of IP, that can mean dealing with enforcement of intellectual property rights. The second leg of the stool is contract development and negotiations. So we are advocates for agencies, and we help agencies enter into or create agreements that protect their interests, whether it's with clients or strategic partners or freelancers, whomever the third party might be. And then finally, the third leg of the stool is we help agencies be compliant with all the marketing laws that they need to be aware of, and that their brand clients need to be compliant with as well as they're putting together the work that they're going to put out into the world.
Yeah, and all these things can really trip up an agency, whether big or small, right? And I got to imagine that people come to you and they probably get a bit of an education on things that they maybe didn't even know about.
Well, we spend a lot of time putting education out there into the world. It is important to me individually, and it's definitely important to our firm to make certain that we're putting content out there that helps agencies understand how to better manage their risks legally. Because I believe this is a strong point of view that I have developed over the years that legal affairs should be a profit center for your agency. Legal affairs should be dealt with proactively. They should be anticipated, expected, planned for. And honestly, Jody, agencies don't love to do that. No, no agency owner went into business saying, I can't wait to learn more about the legal issues that my industry has to deal with on the regular. And so, one of the ways you hedge against that is by being more proactive. And that coincidentally also happens to be the way that legal issues and risk management issues and being, thoughtful about them ahead of time makes you more money and helps you keep more of the money that you work hard to earn. So that's my point of view, and that is the perspective that we bring to how we help agencies with their legal issues.
Yeah, I want to talk about that concept of legal being a profit center versus a cost center.
Mhm.
But maybe dial it back for just a moment and give listeners an idea of when that light bulb should be going off over their head saying, "Ooh, I need to talk to Sharon." What are some of the scenarios that an agency owner might encounter that should trigger that I need legal help with this?
So the consistent patterns we see with the agencies who we talk to and whom we represent out there is one of the most common scenarios that usually requires some assistance from a legal advisor is the client contract process. And there's really two angles to this, Jody. One is having your own strong toolkit of contract documents as an agency. There's two reasons why you need that. One is so that you can be first to table in the negotiations with your own version of the agreement and the terms that make sense for you. And the second is as a set of benchmarks that you use to evaluate a contract that a client may push across the table at you. And because a lot of independent agencies may be small, but their clients are not necessarily small. They may be working with very large brands who have very bureaucratic, if you will, or kind of detailed contracting processes, and they want to work off their paper. Okay, you need to know where the trouble spots might be. You need to know where your negotiating leverage might be. So, for both those reasons, how you show up at the negotiation and also how you evaluate an agreement if you're not going to be using your own as an agency. So, that's the number one scenario we see on the regular from most agencies. I would say, secondly, what we're seeing and have historically seen consistently is agencies create intellectual property every single day, and they create it in the course of generating deliverable work for their clients. They also create a lot of stuff that's proprietary, and so having to think about how you get that IP rights into the hands of your clients, which is usually what they're expecting when it's work for hire, and also making sure that you are identifying and protecting along the way your own secret sauce, your own proprietary assets as an agency. That's usually when an agency needs some assistance from a legal advisor. So we see that a lot. And that could come in the form of, let's say you're a branding firm, you need trademark research or due diligence before you rebrand a product or a service of a client. Let's say you're creating an ad campaign and you need to know how to properly source photo rights, or you need to properly make certain that you own the rights to the copy that a freelancer has written for the campaign, whatever the case might be. All that is intellectual property. It all has a waterfall of transfers and rights that agencies need to be thinking about. So that's the second. And then I would say third, and this is probably not something I would have said a few years ago, but I cannot spend a day in the running of my law firm without dealing with or answering a question about AI and the impact that it is having on agencies and the deliverables that they create. So that is the third most frequently asked set of questions we get is around who owns the stuff that we use AI to help create and who's responsible out in the world if anything goes sideways with the work that gets published that we've generated or developed, but has our brand's name on it, our client's brand's name on it.
Those are all great points and lots of stuff that we can drill down on there. But the overarching theme that I heard is the creation of the legal document or the legal framework that sets up the relationship, whatever the relationship is, whether it's like you said with the freelancer, dealing with AI, creating materials that will end up being intellectual property, or even just a simple contract with a client.
Right.
Um, all those things have to really be locked down hard because they one will create a good framework to work from and the relationship to work from, and two protect you if, like you said, things do go sideways. Are
Exactly
there
right.
are there
Yeah.
mistakes that people make in that process up front? I mean, some just like jump the gun and say, "Oh, I just want to get to work. Whatever you want to say, I'll sign whatever legal document or contract you want."
Yeah. I think there are a couple of mistakes we see regularly, especially in the new business process. First, it's as you said, starting work without having the agreement nailed down. Um, that's never a good idea, and you will never have more leverage as an agency than you do before you start work and when you're negotiating that contract. So you're giving some of your leverage away by getting started. And I understand the excitement level and also the agency owner's interest in getting, the funds flowing. Let's face it, we're in business to make profit and keep lights on and support families with the salaries they earn working for us. So everybody's in a hurry, and that's completely understandable. But I think that in the rush of getting started and getting excited, I think agencies can sometimes tend to undervalue the importance of taking that step back and making certain that the business relationship has a roadmap, and that roadmap is your contract with the client, whether it's a master service agreement or whatever you choose to call it. I'm not hung up on the title so much as I am about the contents. It is something that skipping past is not going to serve the agency well to do. So that's a common mistake, first of all. Secondly, agencies tend to assume if they're engaging with particularly a large brand as a client, a prospective client, that they have no leverage to push back on some of the kind of overbearing or difficult terms that are presented to them in the client's agreement. It's kind of like they're IBM, we're agency ABC. They're never going to, let us redline this agreement or push back on any of these terms. If we want to work with them, this is what we have to deal with. This is what we have to agree to. I'm going to tell every agency listening to this that you have more leverage than you think you do in those situations. I was just asked the question, have I ever seen a deal fall apart or go sideways at this stage just because an agency either pushed back or asked for different terms or contrary language? And the answer is no. I've seen one deal that ended up not going to fruition, and it was on an exclusivity issue. And ultimately, the agency just couldn't stomach what the brand was expecting there, and so they decided to part ways. But other than that, no, if you don't ask, you're for certain not going to get. And it also sets the table for a partnership versus you and your agency as simply vendors or order takers from your client. So that would be the second thing is failing to push back or failing to negotiate or advocate on your behalf during the negotiating process. So I see those top two things as the top two mistakes that agencies make in the haste of wanting to get the deal sealed and getting work started.
And how do you then use those legal documents or that legal setup or framework to do what you were referencing before, which is turning your agency or your legal approach into a profit center versus a cost center? Instead of, spending money on legal, you're actually bending it to your will is not the right phrase
I
there,
love
but
it.
but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I
How do you
do.
turn it into a profit center? How do you make more money with your legal?
I think I do. Well, a couple of ways in my experience. First, if you have pre-vetted or pre-considered the benchmark terms that are important to your firm's bottom line, profitability wise, for example, exclusivity, payment terms, um, restrictive covenants not necessarily confidentiality because that's a given, but non-solicitation, non-competition, etc. Um, if you have pre-considered those things, you've expressed your position on them in your own standard set of contracts, which every agency listening to this should have their own standard set of pillar agreements. The client agreement is just one of those pillar agreements, by the way. But how it makes the legal aspect of all this a profit center instead of an expense drag is you are, first of all, saving time to get to the signing the line, which is dotted between agency and client. You are coming to the table having considered what your necessary margins are, what is important to you, what's just nice to have to you, and what is a hill you're not gonna want to die on, right? In terms of an agreement with a client. That saves time and money. It also makes you a sharper negotiator because if you're presented with an agreement that is so completely opposite your standard terms and conditions, it's going to put red flags up much more quickly. So it helps make you sharper and more shrewd in negotiating, which results in a better financial deal, in my experience, for the agency. So it's speed to get the deal done, and it's better terms, which end up being more profitable for the agency. Those are the top two ways in a client negotiation scenario we see legal be a profit center for agencies.
Yeah, and they are incredibly important to, again, just to set up that framework to make sure that you have a good relationship, that you have a profitable relationship, um, and that it's just, I think maybe probably just easy for everybody involved, right? Because if the relationship, the legal relationship is set up properly, everything else just flows, and you can get to a point where your agreements are auto renewing and there are never any holes in anything. And,
Yeah.
it alleviates, I think, a lot of worry and a lot of probably, concern or sleepless nights, right?
Yeah, that is absolutely correct. And you're also, this is just we're talking about the contract aspects of running an agency, and the client agreement's one example of that. But entering into strategic partnerships with other agencies, which we see a lot, and pre-considering and how to make those profitable for your agency and what terms are necessary to protect you, that is a way to retain more profit and perhaps even generate more top line revenue. Um, licensing of the intellectual property that you create. Not every work, and I know we're not specifically talking about IP in general right now, but not every work that your agency creates to serve a client is something you want to turn over to the client permanently and indefinitely. You might need it to leverage for multiple client relationships. You may create your own productized service, or you might create your own SaaS product. So taking the proper legal steps to protect those IP elements along the way can result in top line revenue opportunities. And they can also increase the value of your agency. We've seen this happen. And so if you're thinking about succession at some point in time, or you're thinking, there may come a day where I love the IP we've created. Maybe I want to license it to other agencies, or I'm a owner that wants to exit the agency fee for service model of doing business, but I might want to consult. And I created this IP while I was running the agency, and I want to still be able to offer that out into the world. Gives you more options. It increases the overall valuation of the agency if you are selling the entire thing, the book of business plus the IP. So, those are examples of, those are dollars and cents examples of how to regard your legal foundation as an agency, as a moneymaker, and a money preserver for you.
And if all that wasn't complicated enough, you mentioned it before, AI, which is now just ubiquitous in everything that we do and everything that
Yeah.
we think of and everything we worry about, frankly, on a daily basis. What risks, what legal risks do AI bring into the equation here? Whether you're integrating AI tools into what you do, you're using AI to create processes that then help your business. Where do we stand legally with AI?
The top two risks that most agencies are concerned about right now when it comes to integrating AI into their work are, first of all, if we are using AI to actually generate deliverables for our clients, who can own that? Who can own the end product? Can the client own it? Can the agency own it? Can anybody own it? And the answer is complicated based on where we are in the United States with the copyright law cases that are pending. So that's the first question that most agencies concern themselves about, and that they get questions about from their brand clients too. The second question with respect to legal exposure is, what if we put something out into the world that we have used AI to assist in generating, and it causes some legal claim to be made? Perhaps whatever we put out was inaccurate. Perhaps we inadvertently misused some third party's intellectual property that was copyright protected. Perhaps you know, we developed a logo or an identity that we used AI to help us create, and it's a conflict, and we didn't do a proper trademark screening. So who's going to pay that tab if there's a legal claim that results as, and so agencies want to understand how to deal with that. So those are the top two issues, the IP ownership question and the liability question. And the truth is that the law always lags behind the actual practices of businesses, and so we don't have 100% clarity on all of these questions yet. And so what we're left to do is to help make certain that the agencies we work with have clear language in all of their agreements with clients, with vendors, with freelancers, that addresses the ownership question as best you can, and is clear about the fact that anything that's AI generated is really not ownable by anybody. There may be some human elements layered in there that can be separately owned. And that secondly, it's got a clear pathway for how we're going to deal with liability or responsibility if something happens once the work is out in the world. So that's sort of the high level practical roadmap for how we're counseling agencies. And we've developed specific products around this at my firm to help agencies with this. But I would say to anybody listening, if you want your cheat sheet for what you should be focused on, it's look at your contracts, see if they address AI at all. Um, if you haven't updated them in the last year or so, they're probably out of date and need to be refreshed, for various reasons. But address AI in your contracts. Have an AI policy that's internal, as well as one that is shareable with your clients, with any third parties outside your agency, and then have crucial conversations. This is something that might not feel legal, but it is the basis for clear communication between you as an agency and your clients, and also between you as leadership of your agency and your team members about What's our policy around AI use? What platforms are allowable? What are the human guardrails around letting any work that we use it to create out into the world? Um, who's checking, compliance to make sure that we're not breaching any laws as best we can know? So those are your top three, cheat sheet steps as an agency to be thinking about and taking steps to implement. If you want a fast action roadmap for how to deal with AI in your day to day.
And all indicative of the warning with big neon letters, don't DIY your legal, right? Get some
Well,
help.
oh my goodness. So first of all, this is not legal advice. If you're my client, then contact me privately and I will give you legal advice there. But if you're not, this is educational, right? And so I will say this in the spirit of being as open-minded, and I think we are as a firm pretty open-minded about and proactive about understanding how AI is going to be critical and is in some cases already critical or will be critical in the operations of their businesses. And so I say this with love. If you're DIYing your legal affairs using one of the predominant platforms. If you are going to ChatGPT to generate your contracts, if you're going to Claude to generate demand letters or legal correspondence, um, I have not yet seen a single example of this that got it right, that had all the context that was necessary. AI is great to use as a thinking partner. If you want a tip on how to best use AI to maybe reduce your legal fees or make the legal process quicker for you when you contact your advisor, use it as a thinking partner. What issues should I ask my advisor about that you see in this contract, Chat GPT? What are the what deal points, should I be negotiating? And then have a conversation with your professional advisors based on the feedback you're getting. Use it as a thinking partner. Um, don't expect it at this point anyway to save you a lot of time or a lot of money in investing in the legal fees that are needed to protect your interests because it's missing context. I can promise you that. At least every single example that we have seen so far. And, we don't scoff at this. If our clients come to us with something that they've generated, we treat it as an outline, we treat it as a wish list, we ask them about it. But we're not going to be editing something that you've created and turning it around that way yet because it almost always doesn't rise to the level of protecting you as an agency, which is our job. That's our interest in making sure you're protected out there in the world yet. So thinking partner, yes. Question asker, yes. Drafter in lieu of professional advising, not so much.
And I feel like we've just scratched the surface here of what we can talk
Yeah.
about, and all these warnings that really agency owners and even anyone who's working in the client facing relationship, I think needs to at least be aware of, if
Yeah.
not completely locked down with a consult with a legal professional like yourself. So, Sharon, thank you so much for sharing this with us. And again, urge people to listen to your podcast because really goes in depth on a lot of these issues. And it's been an education for me. I've listened to a few episodes prepping for our conversation today. So thank you so much for sharing your perspectives here.
Thanks, Jody. It was a great conversation. I appreciate it.
We are not done with you yet, however. If you've listened
Uh-oh.
to the podcast, you know what's coming.
I'm
We are
ready.
going to segue now into the rapid fire question portion of our podcast. This is where we steal a page from inside the actor's studio. We ask our guests a series of rapid fire questions meant to elicit a simple answer, maybe a laugh or two. With your indulgence, Sharon Toerek, let's begin with
Okay.
rapid fire question number one. What is your favorite news source? And feel free to put a legal spin on this.
Oh gosh, I am not going to be tremendously exciting on this point. My favorite news sources too are the New York Times and the Washington Post. I toggle between them. And I try to make sure that I check in with Wall Street Journal too, because, I like to be well-rounded in my perspectives and when I gather my news as best as I can. So that's my answer.
I thought we were going to get the National Law Journal in there, but all right, we'll take it. We'll take
No, no.
it.
Ad Age, I religiously read Ad Age and Ad Week because I want to know what's happening in my client's industry.
Very good. Rapid fire question number 2. What is your favorite social media platform?
LinkedIn, followed by YouTube.
YouTube is great. YouTube is like education central for me.
Yes, I love the searchability of it, and I love the wild stuff that shows up on my front page when I log in. I'm like, what did I go to that made you think that I wanted to watch this video? So I'm constantly amazed by what it serves in my direction. But yeah, my most frequent engagement is with LinkedIn, traditionally. I've sort of stepped away from some of the other platforms that I found were just sucking up a lot of time, and not always giving me value, in my day.
I had the same conversation with a friend of mine just this morning.
Yeah.
Rapid fire question number 3. Coffee or alcohol?
Diet Coke.
All right. So Diet Coke tastes better than Coke? Yes or no? Thumbs up, thumbs down.
Well, it does to me. Yeah. I mean, I'm not proud of it, but it's, yeah. And if I had to pick between though coffee and alcohol, I would pick coffee. I think I will occasionally have an adult beverage, but it's not an everyday part of my life.
Sounds good. Rapid fire question number 4. What's your favorite on the run food?
My favorite on the run food, almonds and cashews.
Oh, they transport easy, that's for sure.
They do. You can mix them together. I'm also a popcorn lover, so that travels pretty well also. But I don't usually take that with me. Like if I was going to need something to eat in the car or on a plane, I would take almonds and cashews.
Yeah, popcorn can be crunch prone.
Makes a
It can
mess.
flatten out real easy.
Makes a mess too, yeah.
And rapid fire question number 5. What do you want to be after you finish this career?
I think that I want to use my interests and whatever skill I have to be an advocate, and whether that's around advocacy around something that's important to me in my personal life, or whether it's advocacy professionally. I've done a lot of volunteer advocacy work. I've stepped away from it to grow my business. I'd love to get back to it again. So I think that's what I see myself doing next.
Sounds awesome. Sharon, this has been a great conversation. Please let people know how they can find you online.
Well, thank you for having me, Jody. You asked great questions, and I'm grateful to have been here. So they can find us at legalandcreative.com. That's the website for the law firm. They can find me on LinkedIn, Sharon Toerek, Toerek, and I host the Innovative Agency, which is not a legal podcast, but a podcast for agencies around innovation and around future-leaning topics that are of interest to agency leaders. Love to see you there.
We will put all the links in the show notes when the episode publishes. Thanks again, Sharon, for being here today. And thank you, everyone, for listening. Please remember to subscribe to the show. Connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at The PR Podcast, and send us a question or a comment. Our intro is by Christopher Appold. You can find him and his fantastic photography on Instagram at Christopher_APPOLDT. Check him out there and hire him for all your photography needs. You can find me online at Jody Fisher on all the socials and on the web at jodyfisherpr.com. We'll see you next time on the PR Podcast.